One. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special Traumacast, the Neil Haley Show, the Storehouse Media Group podcast, and also Criminally Good with our hosts, Jennifer Clarke Eskew and Sherrie Price Clarke. Guys, thanks for stopping by. Who's our guest today?
Well, today our guest is T. Casey Fleming, and I'm really excited to have Casey on. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, he's an international recognized senior advisor and keynote speaker on national security, counterintelligence, and strategic risk, but he's the CEO officer of Black Ops Partners Corporation. So, Casey, when I first started researching you, I thought you were national security, cybersecurity, and all that. But then I researched more and it's about espionage, right?
100%. It's actually about unrestricted war, if you want the technical term, but 100%. It's crime against Americans, 100%.
Well, that's super interesting, which makes it that true crime that fits here. So, you have a lot of stories, and so obviously Black Ops Partners, yes, what you deal with, but you had a case I would love to hear more about. It was a financial services company after an executive was targeted through a honeypot operation. Uh, Take us inside that story. How did that begin?
Well, there have been actually hundreds of them that over the years, we've been involved with and decomposing them. Um, Basically, if you're targeted, if you've got intellectual property or even access to a company network, you're targeted to get that access and either to that information, that intellectual property, or into the company network. So into the company's network, so they can get into that network and get the information, the intellectual property that they need. All this is done, so they make no investment. They steal the technology and then bring it over in-house in communist China, and then use that to power their economy, their national security, which of course is 100% communism. And it takes that technology and that engine out of our economy when they do that. And they've done that many, many times with many different products in many different industries. Solar panels used to be 100% US. Now they're 100% communist China. Electronic windmills, energy windmills used to be 100% US. Now they're about 80% in China. I mean, you can go down the list. Titanium dioxide is a chemical it makes paper and paint and toothpaste brilliant white. Well, they took the recipe and now they're the number one producer of titanium dioxide. All the way down the list. Cancer drugs, GMO seeds, hybrid seeds, aircraft technology, stealing basically the information on our fighter jets, our Boeing 737s that go at $100 million a pop. So that's just economic espionage. That's economic war. But there's literally dozens of types of war to unwind the American society, unwind the American people, weaken the American people without ever having to fire a shot or go to war. And there's many different methods, and I cover that in my new book that came out a few months ago, #1 bestseller called The Red Tsunami: The Silent Storm Killing Your Freedom.
Wow. What background? I mean, were you in the military before you started Black Ops?
No, actually, I came out of technology. I founded IBM's cyber division, the early cyber division back in the day, a global partner for Deloitte in risk and strategy, did Silicon Valley turnarounds, and then I've been doing this since 2011. Once I was assigned to an FBI briefing, and I'm like, wait a minute, these are my clients. So really, the beauty of it is that I provide the 360-degree view that other people can't. There's other great, fantastic, brilliant people who have written books in and around the subject, but not the entire subject, not the 360, and they write it to their comfort zone. There are there are brigadier generals that have written great books who incidentally are in my book and they've endorsed my book. because they write it to the military. Government writes to government. Nobody writes it to the American people because the American people are on the front lines. This will never go to military, or at least it's not expected to go to military. Remember, weaken your enemy by all means and every means necessary with no rules and just short of conventional or hot war with the military. So that's really what's going on. It's called Unrestricted War. Two Chinese colonels wrote a book in 1999. They said, hey, look, the Chinese Communist Party said, listen, we can't compete with America on the military front, at least now. It's going to take us several decades to build up our military. What can we do? So they redefined war to be this unrestricted war with no rules against the American people. COVID, that's a biological weapon of war. And it's proven to be that. We knew it before it ever happened. We knew it when it happened. And guess what? That's exactly what's coming out today. It wasn't a lab leak. It was an absolute lab deployment. Here's the point. That's by the way, that's biological warfare. What about COVID-2, COVID-3 that are mixing with COVID-1 to eliminate races based on DNA stolen out of our ancestry databases and all that. So you know, we don't think like our enemy. Our enemy is actually a level above evil, and they're diabolical. And they've been doing this, actually, this unrestricted war since before 1999. The two Chinese colonels wrote the book in 1999. But that's really what's going on. Drug warfare, we can go into that. You've heard of fentanyl. Well, guess what? The numbers double what the government reports. The government, whether it's past administration, current administration, we all know they cook the books. It's double the number that they report. They report 75 to 80,000 a year murders. Okay, those are murders from fentanyl, but it's double that number. So 150,000 military-aged young men and women that are efficiently murdered out of our population, which can be our military as well as leading our country. And that's the equivalent of two 737s going down every single day. Every single day. 350 funerals every single day. Here's a question for you. Why are you not hearing about that in mainstream media? When we lost 150,000 a day, that was the last time we did that was World War II. And that was on every page, every paragraph of every paper and every newsreel, from what I'm told. And I wasn't alive then. So, you know, why are we not hearing about that? You know, we saw a regional jet, an American Airlines regional jet, a CRJ get hit by a Black Hawk several months ago. That was in the news cycle for about 4 weeks. And that was 1/3 of a 737. That's the equivalent of 6 737s going down every single day. Why are you not hearing the White House, the mainstream media, everybody ranting and raving that we aren't doing anything until we fix that problem? And the problem is we are so infiltrated, subverted, and coerced in our businesses, Wall Street, in our government, in our Congress. A lot of them take CCP money in their reelection PACs. Let me tell you, it's all called foreign influence. When you hear the word foreign influence and lobbying, all that means is they're taking away your freedom. They're taking away your rights and replacing them with their lobbying company that they represent, whether it's the CCP or whether it's a company that's trying to get that kind of thing. So that's really what's going on in the background. And thanks for letting me describe that to you guys.
I'm going to explain also something else, Casey. The fact with AI, the reason why everyone's boycotting data centers is it's not a huge US thing. It's being pushed by the Communist Party of China, Russia, our enemies, so that we stop building data centers. So then we cannot be the number one in AI anymore. That China catches us, goes ahead of us, and is able to control so much more if they win this AI war.
You're exactly right, Neil. Here's another thing. So you're totally right on that. And by the way, 2 points. AI and quantum computing is the Manhattan Project of our time. And I'll just say it because nobody else will. It's in my book. You are in World War III today. It was redefined to be everything short of military. It'll be over before people wake up and understand what's going on. Again, you are in World War III today. That's the number one thing. So that is the Manhattan Project. Whoever dominates AI and quantum, as well as data, is going to win this next round. I have a quote on the back of my book: "The world will be won or lost in the next 10 years or less." I updated that when I was keynote speaker at Freedom Fest in July. The reason for that is there are 5 things that happened in July 2026, and we have crossed the Rubicon. The president of the United States came out and said that communism is the biggest threat to the future of the United States, or I'm sorry, to the future of America since our founding. No president has ever said that, but he never named who. Then at the same time, Congress passed a unanimous bill. You never hear those 2 words in the same sentence, unanimous and Congress. Senate Bill 444. They basically said Xi Jinping and the CCP are the biggest threat to the future of the United States. And then a couple of days later, maybe a week later, Speaker of the House Johnson came out and said, "We're trying to wake the American people up, and we are in a war." Well, my question is, what are you trying to wake the American people up about? What are you trying to wake them up for? Okay, and why now? Why haven't you done this since day one? And the point is, if your Speaker of the House is saying that, they're basically saying, we don't have this handled. We're trying to wake the American people up. The 4th thing that happened was Trump went to NATO and said the future of the free world and freedom is on the line and fighting with communism at this point. Communism is poised to take over the world. And the last one was Trump was coming out, the president was coming out and saying, we caught China hacking our elections. Their hardware and their software is in the voting machines. They have all the data, and they also hacked all the data on 220 million American voter files. And he wanted to say that on mainstream media, but they declined. So that ought to tell you something. They are completely compromised. It's another reason why you're not hearing about fentanyl. Another reason you're not hearing about climate. Climate was everything. Remember, back in the previous administration? Why have you not heard about climate? Well, you can't have climate issues when you're building massive data centers that take all the energy out of small towns and all the water out of them. So that's what's going on. And there's the detail for you. Thank you, Neil.
I appreciate what you do. I know that in your work and for your for Black Ops, you've dealt with and spoken with folks between DHS, DOJ, and as well as elected officials. My background, I was with ATF for about 28 plus years, and then state police in Virginia before that. And during my time with ATF, a microcosm, in fact, a nanocosm of what you're talking about, our office, we were out in rural Virginia, Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee line, and the guys in my office got involved with tobacco diversion cases. Now, the first big diversion case that people may remember that anybody really paid attention to was 2003, when we found that Hezbollah in Charlotte, North Carolina, was diverting tobacco for the money. There didn't seem to be a real penalty or anything that anybody was going to do to anybody over this, and the money was being diverted back to Hezbollah. A few people 100%. Went to jail for a very short time. When we got in, which was after 2005, we started working, and the cases were coming out of Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee. And the next thing you know, our guys were in really big. A part of what we ran into was, and this is on the $1 billion level in each state. So just figure in 2007, we're looking at 50 billion nationwide as the diversion. Tax stamps were being counterfeited. The diversion, actual tobacco products, and I know nobody's, oh, tobacco's bad. I get that. But tobacco products that were being made in China and other places and shipped in, another way to divert that money. They've done the same thing since that time, because in 2010, basically, ATF didn't want any be involved in it anymore. They wanted to give it over to FDA. FDA said, yeah, we'll take it. FDA got it, did it for about a year and said, we don't want it. No one has really worked at it or done much with that diversion. They just never mind, let those billions go. Don't worry about it. And you haven't heard about any other cases, anything major. maybe a Native American reservation or something, but nothing really on the big scale. Our guys were working with people all over the world, British American Tobacco, Saudi, just bouncing all over the place because it was just crazy the amount of diversion and the billions being diverted out. Now it's more into the vapes, which brings us back to fentanyl. There's only 39 licensed vape manufacturing in the country that I know of at this moment. It may have increased by one or two. There are 2,000 on the market available. You can bet they're coming through our southern neighbors for the most part, or off ships that are coming in from Hong Kong, China, and that the majority of the stuff that's going into them is being manufactured in China and brought over. So you don't know what you're really getting in those products. And it goes right back to what you were saying on a nanocosm of money and the way it's impacting our society, what's out there. And you don't hear anybody talking about the vape problem anymore. You don't hear anybody saying, hey, something's not quite right with this THC product or, anything else.
I'm glad you brought up vape, because that is a weaponized drug with our children. Not only are the vaping units made out of carcinogens, which is cadmium burners and cadmium on the tips, but that's at room temperature. It's carcinogenic. Heated up to where it's vaporizing liquids. The liquids are either based in propylene glycol, the derivative of antifreeze, or formaldehyde. And all this is meant to poison our young and destroy this population of our Gen Zs and our Gen As. Vape is a weapon. If I were president, I would ban it immediately, along with TikTok and everything that we know about all these things. These are weapons of mass destruction and weapons of war. There are over 3,000 CCP grow farms in Oklahoma, 3,000 in Maine, 3,000 in Colorado, and thousands up and down the West Coast. Those are CCP grow farms with CCP leadership. The other grow farms with Americans still use CCP, Chinese chemicals that are extreme carcinogens, herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers. So, all this, we can talk for hours. For example, stainless steel cups and mugs from China are with lead and cadmium and so on. So every time you drink, you're being poisoned. When kids are vaping this stuff, they get psychosis. That's also with the marijuana that's laced with synthetic marijuana and so on. They're getting permanent psychosis. That's a permanent trip that you don't come back from. So why is this not number one in mainstream media and White House? That's the reason I went ahead and wrote the book. I never wanted to write a book, still don't, but I did. And it's written, it takes the intelligence and it boils it down to everybody's kitchen table. It's for every American to understand how they're being manipulated and how they are at their children, their families themselves are at war. Last point I want to make on that is we're talking a lot about the Chinese Communist Party. And all roads lead back to the Chinese Communist Party, okay? Underneath them, they're the grand master over Russia, Iran, Pakistan, North Korea, drug cartels. And underneath Iran, the CCP has Iran managing the 6 terrorist organizations. So the other point I'll make on that is that most people don't realize that we're actually in a hot war today. We're in a hot war with Russia through Ukraine as the proxy. We're in a hot war with Russia and China with Iran and the IRGC as the proxy. So the world that 5 years ago is never coming back. And the world that you think you're in right now is very different than what's underneath the surface of what's really going on. Again, that's why I wrote the book. Incidentally, it's not a book. It's a whistleblower's expose. We represent a global network of over 400 of the who's who in intelligence and subject matter experts. When the book came out, over 20 of them endorsed the book, and it's the who's who. of endorsing the book, and there are many others that came out since. But that's really what it is in a nutshell and a brief description. Back to you guys.
You know, that's so our war is with China, pretty much what you're saying. Okay. And they're doing it in certain ways. Why do they want to punish us so bad? To take us over at one point in time?
100%. You can't, there's so much you have to understand about communism. Communism, first of all, you have to understand that the CCP has murdered more of their own people than double all communist regimes combined. So that's what they think of you and your family. And when they poison you, hurt you, all that other kind of stuff, track you, take your data. They've got files on every American, every Brit, every Canadian, Canuck, and so on. So they are in a world war, and everything is for keeps. Everybody's being played. By the way, the left, the right, and the center in the United States, we are all being played equally. We're being manipulated equally. If we all understood what the heck was really going on, we would all get together and band together and unite under American values and freedom and stop all the nonsense that we're being played to do. The divide and conquer is all being done by our enemies on social media, on mainstream media, and all that, and through funding congressmen and Congress folks. All this hatred back and forth between the parties. Let me tell you, we're all Americans and you're in a war. We all need to be on the same team and all on the same page. My belief is, through my work, that the far right is probably the far left, the radical left is probably, just give the math, 10% of the population. For equal measure, 10% of the far right, radical right, 10%. There's 80% of the rest of America that want to raise our kids with American values, with freedom. There's only two sides to the coin. You're either going to have freedom or you'll have this thing called socialism, Marxism, democratic socialism, by the way, which is just another pretty name, a perfume name for communism. That's what's going on. So, and incidentally, that group of over 400 of the who's who, they elected me poster child. As I said, they said, you've got the view on this thing. You're the guy that's been in front of all the agencies. You know what's going on. You've been in front of military, all that stuff. And so they elected me as the poster child, the poster boy, to get the message out. Back to you guys.
And you're doing a great job. This is like, it's enlightening, but it's confirming as well. So thank you for sharing and being the poster child.
Don't forget, there's the Red-Green Alliance between Sharia law and jihad against every American. Listen, either you are going to be Islamist or you have to be murdered. You must convert as an American or you will be murdered. 18 cities in the United States today are led and governed by Sharia law. That Sharia law over and above federal law, state law, local law. Sharia law, which means you will become Islam and convert, or we will murder you. We have to do it. That is our ideology. Islam is not a religion. It is an ideology. And you are at war with the Chinese Communist Party, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, drug cartels, the Red-Green Alliance between the CCP and radical Islam, jihad. So it's not a friendly place right now for us to be in and for our families to be in. And I will tell you, we need another set of new founding fathers, modern founding fathers, to take us into the next 250. And we need to replace everybody in Washington and get people that want to fight for America, because we need the same kind of founding fathers that fought for us then. And by the way, people since then the reason that we're on this podcast today is because we have free speech that came at the expense of others before us. So now the free speech that we're going to have to profess over the next few years has to come from us. Every American needs to have a side gig, and it means protecting their freedom and protecting our Constitution and our country. Back to you guys.
So here's the concern is, if we do see the changes that we're about to see in our country, will this all be silenced? The answer is yes. if we see a movement after the midterms and in different ways,
Oh,
for
absolutely.
it'll be completely silenced.
The first thing to go is free speech. When you go to total communism, the first thing to go is free speech. Now, Marxism and socialism are compared to suicide, right? Because you have to vote those guys in to office. That's suicide. But when they're voted in and they have the power, it's communism. And there's no voting in communism. It's here because that's what you voted in. And when communist hits, it's murder. You do what we tell you to do, or we kill you and your family. I hate to speak so rough. I hate to speak so direct, but this is where we are today. Remember who I represent. I'm the guy that can talk for everybody. I'm the guy that can put it on the table for everybody. And I've done over 250 of these interviews since mid-December. So we're coming out, and it's a real thing. And when you read the book, you're gonna enjoy the book because you're getting the answers you so desperately have been craving. When COVID hit, you wanted somebody to step up and tell the darn truth. I just need somebody to stand up and tell me what's going on. Never happened. Nobody would do it. Nobody. And eventually I'm like, we're running out of time and this needs to happen. So that's why I wrote the book.
I follow enough of the news and enough of the politics of things, I guess, to see, and have been for a long time, those who seem to be extremely willing to be influenced by China, and CCP money, CCP ties, and sometimes it gets very confusing when you start looking at the parties and who's who and who's doing. I would like to know from you, and this is a little off, is there any particular AI that we should be concerned with that's feeding more back into, or maybe is being more controlled by the CCP than other AI?
Great question. Any Chinese AI, you should never use any Chinese technology. Every bit of Chinese technology is weaponized against your freedom and your country. Which also includes TikTok and everything else. And incidentally, when you plug your vape unit into your computer, it's got malware to steal all your data and send it back to China. So AI is absolute. Like I can't tell you the details, but our company, our team has been using American AI and asking questions about CCP, and they won't answer anymore. They're like, nope. AI will not answer the AI that we're using, two of them, will not answer CCP questions as of 2 days ago. And I will tell you, AI has to be tuned. Every AI model must be tuned by a human. Who's tuning those models? AI is an influence platform. It's a propaganda influence platform. So yeah, there's a thread of truth in all that it's there, but it's also manipulated. So when your kids go to AI and you go to AI, understand those models were tuned left, right, communist, freedom, whatever. And you have to understand that's where AI is. And it is also being weaponized.
Now, the fact of the Chinese models, why it's bad. And even though TikTok's owned by the United States now, you're still concerned about us using it.
As I mentioned, I'm a technology executive. I've done Silicon Valley turnarounds. I turn around software companies. I know all about software, okay? There's no way you can take Chinese created code and change the owner and make it all sterile now. It just doesn't happen, okay? That was window dressing to make certain people, donors, happy.
I got it. Okay. So that's the truth, that TikTok's still dangerous. Got it. And what about the other AIs? Now, like you said, are you using a lot of open source with your company? Probably not going to any of the other the ways just straight to the,
Even open source is being manipulated. You're not getting to the truth. Even when I put things in that I know are absolutely true, it comes in and says, well, that's not validated. And that's not true. That's not, that kind of thing. We're not in, well, all I can say is we're living in a alternate reality than really what's going on. We're living in a propaganda state and we're all being played. And that's the reason for the book, to get everybody, here's the point. The book connects the dots. It pulls back the curtain. And every day you're going to get 2 more puzzle pieces or 3 more puzzle pieces. And, what the heck's going on? And you're going to say, oh my God, this is what's going on with that news that I saw online, or that news that's going on here, or I heard this, that plugs in here, or that plugs in here. So it connects the dots, pulls back the curtain. So you're now informed. And let me tell you, your enemy does not want 3 things to happen. Number 1, they don't want you to become informed. Well, that's the book. Number 2, if you're informed, they don't want you to they don't want you to unite. That's a movement that we are behind and we have formed. Currently, it's in development. It's a landing page. It's called freedomforever.global, because freedom is global. And then the other thing is, if you're informed and you're united, they don't want you to take action. Well, that's the movement as well. We show you where to spend your money because you vote every day, several times every day with your wallet. And we show you where to spend your money for pro-American and pro-freedom, and where not to spend your money, that companies that are pro-CCP or pro-this or pro-that, that are anti-American. And then who to vote for in state, federal, even local elections, school boards. Everybody needs to get involved. It's on your watch now. You are at war. Mainstream media cannot be trusted. Only go to mainstream media for your weather and your sports. There are other methods to get true news that's going on out there. I'll just say it. I validate the Epic Times. I've known them for a dozen years. They speak the truth. That's where you need to get your news. Get your sports and your weather from the fake mainstream media. And incidentally, I lean towards the center. I don't lean left or right. I'm a patriot. My company's patriotic. We're neutral. We don't have a dog in the fight. We're led by God and the Constitution, and that's it.
Okay, great. Anything else to add, Jen or Sherrie?
Thank you very much. Very, very informative, enlightening, scary.
All right, can I make a plug?
Go ahead.
Oh, please do.
I don't ask anybody to buy a book anymore. I ask them to buy 10 and pay it forward. If you go to the website, theredtsunami.com, that's it. It's also on audiobook. I would ask everybody to put a 5-star review on it. You're going to want to give it 10 stars. I promise you. It's got 4.7 on Amazon right now. But you want this book to go viral, not for me. For you, for our country. Everybody needs to become informed. And I urge people to get 10, and you get a bulk discount if you order it off the website. I'm not selling books. I'm trying to save our country. Thank you.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Go to storehousemediagroup.com for all things media, podcasting, and publishing. And check out jenniferclarkeskew.com for her book. Appreciate it, guys. That was Special Simulcast of the Neil Haley Show, the Storehouse Media Group podcast. And